Hello everyone and welcome back to Jenna Voice. Today's video is going to be a review of a masterclass I attended a couple of days ago up at the University of Utah. This masterclass was given by composer Jake Heggie. If you don't know who Jake Heggie is, he's an American composer, obviously a living composer. And you may be wondering why he was here. Well, Utah Opera is putting on a new opera of his, Moby Dick. It's an adaptation of the famous book Moby Dick. And so Jake is here, the librettist is here. I believe his name is Gene Shear. Apologies if I'm quoting that incorrectly. But Utah Opera's been really incredible collaborating with the University of Utah in terms of bringing artists in and collaborating them with this school to provide master classes and lectures of different types depending on who's coming for different performances. That includes composers, librettists, performers, and conductors. So this is just really exciting to see these collaborations happen year after year, and I was really excited for this master class. I'm pretty sure I've talked about Jake Heggie a little bit in some previous videos. I don't know by any means his entire body of work, but the little bit of vocal music of his that I've studied, I have absolutely loved. I performed a few of his art songs in my last master's recital, and I just absolutely fell in love with them. So I was really excited to go to this master class, hear more of his music, and hear what he had to say about singing and performing. Jake Heggie is not a singer. He said that outright in the beginning. He's never performed, but as a composer, you have the most to say about your own music, and he gave some really wise and insightful comments about performing in general, telling a story, creating a character. And so I took copious notes during the masterclass, and I thought that I would share some of the things that he said with you all. So one of the overarching kind of themes of the masterclass that I noticed when it came to performing, he would often say less is more, particularly with body movement. If a singer was using their hands, using lots of gestures as part of the storytelling, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But he seemed to appreciate the less is more approach. I kind of agree with that as well. I actually tend to not move enough. I get kind of stiff when it comes to performing, but when you decide to add movement to a performance, making sure that it is meaningful and purposeful and just appropriate rather than movement for the sake of movement, I think was the point he was trying to get across. So one of the things he said was, the more specific it is to you, the more specific it is to us being the audience, whoever's listening and watching. So the more that you understand the piece and the character and the story, the better it will be portrayed to your audience. So making sure that you have, of course, done all of the research and had time to really get comfortable within the character and the story and the piece itself. Another wise thing that he said is to make sure that you are comfortable with the line of music on its own as well as the text on its own. This is something I've heard before from other teachers and coaches, to take the time to separate the music and the text, making sure you can work through both of them without each other, without being codependent on each other. They are within the piece itself, but just making sure that all of the notes and the phrases really fit comfortably into your voice with the music. And then with the text, the greatest benefit about separating that from the music is it's a great opportunity to really understand the story better. It's a great opportunity to help you memorize the text if you're spending time just reciting it like a poem or reading it like a story or a narrator would, or somebody deep within the story or the situation, depending on what the piece is. One thing that he did with a lot of singers is he had them recite the text as if it was a monologue, and that can terrify a lot of singers. I would agree. I would probably be kind of terrified to do that, but it's a great opportunity to test, number one, your memorization, but number two, how well you really understand the story rather than just how the text fits with the notes. So that was really interesting to watch him challenge the singers with how well they were able to monologue the piece. Okay, the next thing that I wrote down is, quote, "Thinking is stinking." And this is a line he said when talking about skills of acting. And as singers, we absolutely think a lot while we're performing, but there's a difference between thinking productively and thinking where it gets in the way of our best performances while we're performing. If we're thinking about, oh gosh, how do I sound right now? How do I look right now? Those sorts of thoughts are gonna get in the way of your performing. If you're thinking about, what are my character's emotions? What's the overarching line of this piece? That's gonna help you in terms of giving a solid performance. But getting outside of our heads is really important to conveying a story and a character really, really well. The next thing that I wrote is that everyone wants to believe that the story within that piece that you're performing is being lived right now. That is the exciting thing about live performance, whether it's acting or singing or dancing. Everyone in the audience comes because they want to live within that moment that you are creating as a performer. If they wanted to just hear pretty notes, they might as well have listened to it on a recording. But that's the exciting thing about being a performer, is that we get to create this moment that may have been written hundreds of years ago by the original composer and librettist, if that's the case. But you can bring it to life as if it's the first time, and that is so, so very exciting that we have the honor of doing that as performers. All right, another thing that he said that I wrote down is that look for personal relations within the piece before you perform it, meaning looking for reflections of emotions and struggles and character qualities that you can find within the piece that you're performing. The more that you're able to relate it to yourself, whatever the content may be about or what kind of character it is, if you're able to find even an ounce of relatability, it will be that much more convincible when you perform it. Because if you perform a piece that you absolutely cannot fathom what that character went through or why that character made certain decisions leading to that piece or whatever they're saying in that piece, it's probably going to come off as rather confusing to your audience. So definitely taking the time to look within yourself in terms of what can I find in this piece that has meaning to me or reflects something that I experienced will only help you when it comes to performing. Okay, so another exercise that he had done with a couple of singers was he had them actually sing it to one person. He brought somebody on stage, sat them in a chair, and made it a very intimate space, because he said, before you perform a piece, take an opportunity to sing it one-on-one to somebody, and it will really open your eyes to a whole new world of what this piece could mean and what that character could have been going through. It makes you look much more introspectively. Like I said, it was very intimate. This is something that I'm not comfortable with, singing one-on-one to somebody, but he was very wise in saying this, because a lot of the times when we're learning a piece and we're practicing it, we'll be in the practice room going over it again and again and again, but we're not singing to anybody. We might have certain physical tics when it comes to memorizing, but then we turn on performance mode when it comes to performing, and they're not the same thing. There's kind of this disconnect between learning the piece in the practice room and getting up for the first time to perform it for an audience. And he made a very good analogy with it, just saying that, you know, when we're in school, we have so many friends that are singing. Why not take the opportunity, create a small group, and you all decide to meet once or twice a week and take turns singing one-on-one to each other in a practice room, and it would really enhance your understanding and examination of the piece. And I just thought that was a really great idea. So if you're somebody who's in school learning new music, I think you should definitely try that. Let me know if you're somebody who has sung one-on-one with other singers. I'd love to hear about your experience in the comments below, because as I said, it's not something that I've really done because it's not something that we typically do, but it makes so much sense. So please, if people are doing it, I want to hear, and maybe I'll have to try it sometime. I don't know, but I think it's really cool. So that's about all that I wrote for this masterclass. Like I said, I found it really inspiring and exciting to hear what he had to say as a composer, and I hope that you all can take some of this wisdom with you when it comes to learning new music and getting up to perform a piece for the first time. If you're somebody who doesn't know Jake Heggie, Google him right now, YouTube some of his music, listen to it. I can pretty much guarantee you'll find at least a few songs of his that you'll love. I am so excited to go see Moby Dick this week at Utah Opera. It's gonna be an incredible experience. If you're curious about this opera, do look online. There is a little bit of it on YouTube, I think. If you go to Utah Opera's page, they've posted a lot of articles and tidbits of information about the show, as well as pictures and even some short clips from rehearsals and the production. So hopefully that gives you some excitement, some information. And if you like this video, if you like my reviews on master classes, make sure you give this video a thumbs up. If you performed any of Jake Heggie's songs or arias, I'd love to hear about them. Leave a comment down below, and make sure you're subscribed so you can keep up with more videos like this one. And I'll talk to you all very soon. Bye.